We'll go ahead and get started with some introductory overview comments before we go into the general overview. Thank you all for joining us today. I see Councilmember Lucas is on. So we'll have a couple of thoughts once I go into the very quick top lines, and we'll introduce council members, we'll introduce staff, and looks like we've got a few people that continue to join us. So Loretta, if you could man the waiting room in the meantime. We'll go ahead and get started. So greetings everyone, and welcome to the February and March 2022 listening sessions for the California Truth and Healing Council. We have general listening sessions this week, with the first taking place today from 1 to 2:30, and then on Wednesday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. The council will hold a regular business meeting of the Governing Council on Friday at 1 p.m. We encourage you all to attend the meeting Friday to engage directly with the Governing Council members. My name is Christina Snyder, and I'm a member of the Dry Creek Rancheria Band of Pomo Indians and the Tribal Advisor to Governor Gavin Newsom. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that the land I'm joining you from is the ancestral homelands of the Patwin peoples. I'm now going to briefly walk through some of the logistics for today's session. First, we are recording this listening session, and it's available for public participation via Zoom and dial-in. The recording and summary notes will be available on the CTHC meeting page and the blog when they're ready. For those interested in following the council, ongoing updates, including listening session recordings and the listening session summary documents, are available at the California Truth and Healing Council updates blog at catruthandhealing.com. You can also get updates for events by following the Governor's Office of the Tribal Advisor on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Additional details, including meeting dates, agendas, and background information, are available at tribalaffairs.ca.gov/CTHC. If you haven't already done so, we'd appreciate if you could update your name to let us know who you are. And as we get into the discussion portion of today's session, we'd appreciate if those that are comfortable could go on camera. We're going to start with brief introductions of those of you who have joined us. And then, as always, we'll dive into a quick overview to get everyone up to speed on recent updates. And then we'll go into listening and discussion portion of today's convening. If you'd like to speak at any point, you can raise your hand and we'll call on you. If you're using the Zoom app, you should be able to use the app controls, but can use Alt-Y in Windows or Option-Y on Mac to raise or lower your hand. If you've dialed in, you should be able to raise your hand by pressing *9. And if you've dialed in and you're muted, you can also unmute by pressing *6. You may also email written comments to info@catruthandhealing.com at your convenience. Now, before we begin, I'd like to remind participants that all of our council members, council staff, and many of you are members of the population coming here in need of collective healing. So I ask that you engage with our council, our office, and each other with respect and with your whole heart and a healing mindset. Many of us doing this work are navigating systems that were not built for us to make change that was never contemplated. This in itself takes an enormous amount of emotional patience and integrity, and we're all doing our best to make strides in these spaces. So thank you again for joining us. And I'm going to start with the council members that are present if they'd like to introduce themselves and say a few words. And we'll start with Councilmember Lucas if you'd like to start. And it looks like you've got a dog on your lap.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon. The world is in such chaos. I was talking to a young man in the Vejas Reservation who, out of a clear blue sky, said, "I have 10 dogs." Oh my. And I've been in need for one to help me hear and see. So I foolishly took this puppy. So she's a good little girl. Her name is Matikwa, and I recommend everybody get acquainted with her, but I believe that she's from the earth, and that's why I've named her Matikwa. But anyway, I wish everybody well. We have an awful lot going on in the world, and I pray that we can find some world peace for a change and send our blessings around the world as well as to ourselves. I would also like to say, Christina, I did pass your information on to Real Chrisman on the iPad thing. Hopefully he's contacted you, but if nobody's seen that yet, I'd really recommend people kind of find it. He's had a number of good interviews with that generation, about between 25 and 40. A lot of good information. You know, many of us old folks look at the younger generation and say, "Oh God, what are they doing?" But every generation does things differently. And I think we owe them an apology for that philosophy, because I have seen where they truly are trying to assimilate, be part of the modern society, and yet hang on to the culture and do the respectful things. And so you'll get a taste of that if you can get into that. So I just want to give it a little plug because I think it's pretty neat. And thanks for saying hello to my friend.
Thank you, Councilmember Lucas. Councilmember Perrone, would you like to say a few words?
Sure, Christina, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Neil Perrone. I'm from the Tule River Tribe. I currently serve as the chairman. And when this first started, I was kind of not sure what it would turn out to be, but seeing that, again, like Councilman Lucas said, the conditions going around the world and at home with the pandemic and everything, and our community was hit really hard, and unfortunately we've lost a lot of people, and we're still dealing with that. But I think things like this, coming together and talking and getting things out, getting things off our chest, taking that chip off our shoulder for some of our younger generation, some of our older ones too, I think is a good thing. So I want to say thank you for taking the time to be on the call, and we look forward to hearing from everyone and sharing. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I thought we also had Councilmember Manzano on. Or did I get that wrong? Loretta, you're going to have to help me a little bit.
I think I saw her join earlier, but I don't see her on now.
Okay. Well, we'll open it up now. If anyone else would like to introduce themselves to the group and say a few words, or you don't have to say a few words, you can also just introduce yourself to the group. And then for those of you that don't feel comfortable going on camera or going off mute, you can also just let us know who you are in the chat so that we know who is all in the room. So feel free to unmute your line if you'd like to introduce yourself at this time.
I'm back. Hello, everybody. Oh, man. Hi, Christina, Loretta, Councilmember Carmen Lucas. My name is Robert Levi. I am from the Torres Martinez Desert Kuya Indians. I'm on the subcommittee for education, and Christina and Loretta, we've been together since day one, I believe, trying to figure out how we're going to do this healing process. I guess I'm the educational person. We're working real hard with Assembly Member James Ramos and putting in AB 1551, which it would emphasize more California Indian history in the social studies history framework. Also, we have ethnic studies now is a graduation requirement by the year 2024. And we're in dire need of American Indian teachers, California Indian teachers, to teach the component of American Indians. We have a 2%, I guess, teacher rate in the state of California, which is terrible. Just recently, as of last Monday, I am the California Indian Elder in Residence at California State University, San Bernardino. So again, if you have any educational concerns, you can put them in the chat. And if you're down here in Southern California, please drop by CSUSB, come to the Student Union North, and I have an office and I have a secretary. It's just amazing what we're going to get done there. Also, and lastly, is that we've been writing curriculum for both the ethnic studies and also the hopefully the new California Indian history framework. So then my wife and I are very busy trying to get the point across of having our young students in the state become more aware of who they are and where they're going. So thank you, Loretta. Thank you, Christina.
Thanks, Robert. Would anyone else like to introduce themselves at this time?
Yeah, hi, this is Daryl Cruz from the Washoe Tribe. I'm here just to learn more about this and how we can participate, support the Truth and Healing group and our tribal neighbors, the Miwoks, Maidu, and Pit Rivers. Those are the tribes immediately around us. So just to support everyone. Anyway, thank you.
Wonderful to see you, Daryl. And I was actually just telling the council members how we want to have a meeting up by all of you. So I'll be in touch soon.
I
I think
look forward to it.
they all want to make the trip, and they also want to, that's right by that boarding school too, that I think that they would be interested in learning a bit more about. So
Sounds good.
great. Would anyone else like to introduce themselves to the group?
I am Charlie Toledo, native to New Mexico, Towa descendant, living in Napa Valley, Onisati, Miwok, and Patwin territory. And second time I'm joining the group. I'm excited that this is happening and going on. I did submit the survey from the work we've been doing here around historical trauma. I hope you got a chance to see it and are willing and able to share it with anybody who's interested. Thank you.
We're able to share that publicly, or would you like us to send this to you?
No, you can share it publicly. I sent the surveys that from the
Perfect.
research that we've done. It's a 65-page analysis of the historical trauma and healing project that we did here in Napa County with mental health dollars, MHS money.
I've got it open right now, and I keep making about a half a page at a time before someone calls me. So
It's a long study. It's you almost have to be a educator to get through it. It's a lot of data. But hopefully it's
really
worthwhile.
appreciate it.
But you're welcome to share it with anybody who's interested. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Would anyone else like to introduce themselves to the group? And it looks like we've got a couple in the chat. Kathy?
Hilly. This is Kathy Chichansey coming to you from traditional Yokuts territory. Good morning. I had seen an article regarding Robert Levi's appointment into that position, so I wanted to congratulate him. It came out from the CTA, but I also wanted to say that I know Andrew Jolivet from UC San Diego is also doing some consulting with the CSU system regarding faculty. And so if anyone has any people in mind for those types of positions, they may want to contact him at UC San Diego. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Kathy. Would anyone else like to introduce themselves or say a few words at this time?
Hi, everyone.
Oh, Loretta.
Hi, everyone. My name is Loretta Miranda. I'm Chief Deputy Tribal Advisor. I am a descendant of the Morongo Band of Mission Indians in Southern California, Serrano and Cupeño, and I'm super excited that we have a pretty large group today and really looking forward to the discussion.
I am so sorry. I think I've just gotten used to you being like attached to me. So I'm so sorry for the oversight. And then we've also got from my office, Michael Park, who works directly with both Loretta and me to make sure that everything is running smoothly. So if any of you have any requests for our time, or if there's anything you'd like to know a little bit more about, please feel free to chat with Michael and we can set something up. Would anyone else, before we get into kind of the overview and the overview of what to expect from the next quarterly meeting, would anyone like to introduce themselves at this time?
Hi, my name is Tammy Carpenter, and this is my first time listening on this listening session. I'm from the Hoopa Indian Reservation here in Northern California. I'm just here listening, just my first time listening to this program, so I'm just listening right now. And I work at the local radio station here in Hoopa, KIDE in Hoopa. We are locally native owned, so we are hopefully I can try to get some of these recordings put on our radio station so we can have it here, so people here in the Hoopa area can get healing, truth and healing started here in Hoopa.
That's great. Thank you. We really appreciate that. And also, if there's anything specific that you think that Hoopa could use to be initiating its own process or do something similar, let us know, because we'd like to be able to work with our philanthropic partners to help tribes build that capacity to bring also back into this group as well.
Sure.
And then I saw,
Yes.
great. I'll stop talking. You please talk.
No, why I was listening was why I wanted to listen. I went to the Khadijah Britton's. We had her anniversary on the 5th of February this month, and we were I was listening. So a lady had asked me if I wanted listening to the healing, because my daughter was also was murdered. So I was just trying to get a little healing, get some things going for myself and my son. So I'm just here to listen to see what you have to offer. That's all. Also.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. And our hearts and our condolences go to you too.
Thank you. Okay. I'm listening.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ken, would you like to introduce yourself? You're muted right now, Ken. There you go.
Am I okay?
You're good.
Okay. Ken Woodrow, Western Mono, Uxashi Indian Tribe. Good afternoon.
Welcome. Good to hear your voice. Would anyone else like to introduce themselves to the group at this time? Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and get started. And please feel free to put anything in the chat that you'd like to, and any thoughts that folks have as we go through. Loretta will be monitoring the chat and Michael will be monitoring the chat. And so we'll make sure that we'll try to answer things in real time. And as folks want to engage directly, please feel free to add resources in the chat as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And then when I share my screen, if you want to also still be able to see faces, you can also slide. There's going to be a little slider bar. And so you can do that as well.
You're good.
Good. See, I don't even have to say anything. Okay, so these are the updates for February and March. As you'll remember, we pushed out February a little bit because February is a bit of a short month, and also wanted to have a chance to give people an update in anticipation of a potential hybrid or in-person meeting that will be taking place later this month that we'll talk about as this presentation continues. So at the beginning of every meeting, we start with the council meeting principles that the governing council adopted to make sure that we're all in a space of talking to each other respectfully and making sure that we are not creating more wounds, more trauma as we engage with each other in this space. So in order to create a space where participants feel welcomed, respected, and able to speak comfortably, we'll uphold the following principles in all convenings of the council. We ask that all participants, which includes council members, authorized representatives, staff, moderators, and the public, work towards sharing in their stewardship. If you're a participant in a convening with the council, we ask that you engage in the work of the council and with others in an open and respectful way. Engage in behaviors that will make others feel welcome. Take care of your emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical well-being, and seek support as you need it. Respectful engagement. This means affirm the person and critique the ideas. Provide feedback constructively with the intent for mutual growth and healing. Welcome feedback and challenges to your opinions. I think in this space, it's also important to remember that some ideas are central to people's identities and experiences. So understand when that's the case as well, where critiquing an idea may in itself be critiquing the person. So I think just use some judgment when it comes to that type of thing. Avoid contributing to assumptions or generalizations about tribes, tribal communities, or other groups. Do not ask individuals to speak for their perceived group, speak only for yourself, and offer participants the benefit of the doubt. Spirited discussions are expected on these topics. See this as a sign that folks are engaged and care, and remember to be respectful as you speak, read, and listen. Honor confidentiality. Do not share others' experiences or information without permission. And in this space, it's very important that because a lot of participants are going to be sharing personal stories, personal experiences, personal or tribal or cultural information, that to the extent that you want to share that information, you have their express prior informed consent to do so. And if you don't understand that that's not your story to share, and if there is a space for that story, that potentially you invite that person or we invite that person to share that story as they feel comfortable. Assume that you have relative privileges and both explicit and implicit biases. Know that others may or may not have had similar opportunities, experiences, and background as you. Recognize that their contributions are equally valuable. For those from dominant identity groups, refrain from contributions that prioritize dominant experiences over those who have been marginalized. Make behavioral adjustments for virtual communication. If you wouldn't say something to someone's face, refrain from saying it virtually by voice or text. Know that the use of strong language, capital letters, and exclamation marks can easily be misinterpreted online as unwelcome yelling or aggressive behavior. And remember that tone doesn't carry via text. People might not realize that you're joking or being sarcastic. Leave space for others to engage and express comments and ideas if you have spoken recently by letting people finish their thoughts before adding new ones. Take steps to ensure your physical comfort. Some examples in virtual meetings include shifting your sitting and standing position often, taking a purposeful deep breath regularly, raising your eyes to look beyond the screen or sit back from the computer when possible to relieve eye strain. Keep a glass of water nearby and take sips throughout sessions. Please consider physically leaving the computer during breaks. Participate as you are able to and adjust your presence as needed, whether that's turning off video or stepping away entirely. It's not expected that all participants will or should be present for the entirety of the council's work. We know and support that you'll take time to eat, take care of your families and pets, but be aware that virtual convenings will be recorded and available to the public. Set up supportive resources such as food, water, ergonomics, and privacy while offloading responsibilities if possible in advance of convenings. Plan for breaks and stick to them. Seek support from your own networks or from provided resources as needed. And please alert our staff to any concerns as soon as possible by emailing info@catruthandhealing.com. We recognize that participants bring their entire selves and histories with them to the council, and that topics explored during the course of this work may stimulate emotions and thoughts that would benefit from accompaniment and support. Although trauma responses can come from a variety of sources and contexts, the council understands that those who have experienced disparate treatment due to their Native identities may specifically want to seek assistance related to historical trauma and related issues discussed with the council. Council staff will be providing supportive resources for participants to be available for the duration of the council's work. So today we're going to go through an overview of the council and its charge, go through this Friday's meeting agenda, go through the agenda for the March hybrid quarterly meeting, and then go through some of the subcommittee updates, and then go into listening and discussion. At any point in time, if anybody has anything they'd like to say, please feel free to unmute your line and ask questions, make comments, or put anything in the chat, and we can answer that in real time. What is the California Truth and Healing Council? The Truth and Healing Council is a Native American-led initiative that aims to clarify the historical record of the relationship between the state and California Native Americans by bearing witness to, recording, examining existing documentation of, and receiving California Native American narratives in the spirit of truth and healing. The council is led and convened by me and governed by a governing council, the California Native American leaders, and may include additional non-voting representatives from California Native American tribes, relevant state and local agencies, and other relevant non-governmental stakeholders. The council will submit a final written report of findings to the governor's office by 2025. The final report should reflect a holistic understanding of the historical relationship between California Native Americans and the state. And it can also make remedial recommendations sorry for the typo, and consider how to prevent similar depredations or policies in the future. These recommendations will be considered and adopted or developed by the council in real time. And what that means is as recommendations come in through tribal consultation, for example, or through these listening sessions. So let's say, for example, one of you says, you know, we need to have X, Y, and Z change in the law because this is really causing us real problems when we're trying to access sacred sites, or this is causing us real problems when our kids are trying to you know, express their culture in school, or it's causing us real problems that people are learning about us in this wrong way. And so as those come in, the council will consider them through the deliverables subcommittee, and that subcommittee will recommend whether those considerations should have follow-up done, more research done, or whether they should be adopted because, you know, there's enough kind of meat to the recommendation that it looks like, you know, good on its face to go to the full council for adoption. And then that subcommittee and the council will also be developing recommendations as well based on what everyone's hearing in the context of these meetings. So once those recommendations come through, and once they're vetted through that deliverables subcommittee, they'll go to the full council for adoption during typically a regular business meeting. And those will start getting populated on the website as well so that people can start acting on some of those recommendations. The model for the recommendations, for those of you who are familiar with other mechanisms, is the calls to action that were developed by the Canada Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And what they are real detailed recommendations about how something can be accomplished and how it will address a problem. And so that those recommendations can either be taken by policymakers, taken by private interest, because let's say it's, you know, this is something that has to do with more of a public policy issue and the entire public needs to be engaged in this. And they can take those recommendations and use them for, you know, grant funding, or they can use them for changes in legislation or the like. These can be recommendations, as I mentioned, to improve policy, legislation, or funding for California Native people, but could be a number of other things. So sky's the limit. The council welcomes and encourages all available methods for public participation. Participants are encouraged to attend and observe all meetings of the council, with the exception of any closed session proceedings, submit written statements to the council, make oral statements and testimony to the council, participate in interactive dialogues, panel discussions, and informal meetings, organize and host affiliate events on issues relevant to the work of the council. And so an example would be, you know, we're having a meeting in Sacramento and one tribe wants to have its own local truth and healing event kind of concurrently. We are happy to have details on that event made available, and then also direct any of our participants to that event as well, to the extent that that's helpful and is something that that tribe would like to highlight. And then also join the work of the subcommittees. Tribal consultation. We're in the process of initial consultations right now, and I know we had an initial deadline of February 28th, but these are ongoing meetings. So if there are tribes that are seeking to engage later out, or they'd like to see kind of how things go with this hybrid meeting and want to see how they can engage, really what we're doing with these initial consultation meetings are understanding from tribes what their specific needs are for their community. And if there's anything off the top that, you know, they're recommending as remedial recommendations, or if there's anything that we should know specific to their tribe, like they've done an initiative like this, they've got something that's already ready to kind of plug in. We are happy to have those meetings just to understand a bit better about how your tribe might want to engage, or whether it needs more in terms of research, staffing, travel, capacity, any of those things for us to be able to think about how to better resource this initiative. And then outside of tribal consultation, we're generally available to meet with Native American individuals, organizations, and groups at their request. Okay, so we also have currently a call for oral histories. And we're seeking to conduct interviews for these oral histories, particularly from elders, and can provide you with assistance in providing submissions. If you contact us at info@catruthandhealing.com, please just let us know what you're where you're at in any process. I know we have some communities that have already conducted oral histories and would be able to just submit them at their initiative. And then we have some communities where that might not be the case and they would want someone to come assist them, or maybe they have an active program where they would just need, some sort of resourcing in terms of video equipment or a loan of video equipment, and then particular questions that we would want to hear from those elders. We have some examples from the California Museum because they did a California Native Oral Histories project back in, I want to say 2007, but I'm probably getting the year wrong. And that's a little bit of the model that we're looking to replicate. And so we can put some of those links in the chat when I'm through with this presentation. But really what we're trying to get, and this was at the direction of the elders subcommittee, is to make sure that we're capturing those stories in the reality that they happen, and not kind of watering down the experience of California Native peoples as as history has been unfolding over the past several decades. Anything you'd like to add, Loretta?
I was just going to add that we have a question in the chat about how many oral histories have been collected thus far.
For this council, none. So we've had some consultations where tribes have expressed that they have oral histories that they'd like to submit. And so we're, basically at the point of once they're ready, they can submit it at any time. We are also ready and willing to go out and kind of collect oral histories, but we haven't gotten that interest yet. So we are still seeking folks who are interested in engaging in this process. You want to add anything, Loretta?
Nope, that was it.
Great. So 2022 council meetings. So for this year, there will still be business meetings of the governing council, and those will be basically to continue to conduct the business of the council. So right now they're virtually, and then at the end of March, there's open meeting laws that are going to expire. So any meetings of the council will need to take place in person or as aligned with some of the open meeting laws. And so they may be less frequent, or we may add them to the regular quarterly meetings so that the business is conducted in one chunk of it, and then other participants are invited for the hearing portions and the listening and talking circle portions. But we'll kind of have that conversation, I think, in the next, probably on Friday, just to understand where people are at. I imagine it'll be a bit more challenging to get folks all in one place on a monthly basis. So we'll just have to kind of hear from the council on that. And the next business meeting will take place this Friday from 1 to 4. So those will continue because there's certain business that needs to get done and certain updates that need to get to the governing council to ensure that they're able to kind of steer the ship. And then the regular quarterly council meetings and hearings will begin this month, starting on the 17th and 18th. And we are having the first hybrid regional meeting of the council take place in Sacramento. So for this is the Friday agenda. So this is not the hybrid agenda, but this is for this Friday. We'll have a welcome roll call and traditional opening, and then we'll have any council member updates from meetings that council members have had in the past, I guess, a little over a month and a half. And then we'll have the March quarterly meeting overview that you'll all get in a minute. And then subcommittee updates and community input from the different subcommittees. This is really where we want members of the public to come and talk about the different work of the subcommittees. If there's anything that that you'd like to see. And we may also have during this council meeting a proposed process for adding members of the public to these subcommittees as public council members that are members of those subcommittees. We'll then go over the next meeting date and topics and then go into public comment generally. Typically, we like to start public comment at 3 sharp, but because we want to hear public comment throughout each of the different subcommittee issue areas, it may be that public comment starts a little bit later. So this is the draft participant agenda for the March hybrid meeting. And so really what we're trying to do is encourage folks who are local to and potentially indigenous to the Sacramento region to attend some of these pieces in person. But we'd like to, and with a priority to Native people who are from the Sacramento region, California Native people indigenous to the Sacramento region. And then have a hybrid virtual option available for other participants. So registration will be required for a number of these events, but just putting them all out there so everybody has a bit of an overview of what we're looking at. So on Wednesday, the 16th, and again, all of this is subject to change, but we'll probably finalize this in the next 24 hours because we need to get the registration links out. But we'll have an optional site visit and listening session for the interpretive changes that are contemplated at Sutter's Fort State Park that will be more inclusive of and elevate more the Native story from people who were forcibly working in those and living in those places at Sutter's Fort. On Thursday, March 17th, from 9 a.m. to noon, we'll have the California Truth and Healing Council talking and listening circle at the future site of the California Indian Heritage Center in West Sacramento. And there will be streaming and online Q&A. Again, this will be by registration, and we'll put those links up by the end of today for folks to register, and then also indicate whether there's different preferences. So for example, if you are a member of a Sacramento area or a tribe that is indigenous to Sacramento area, whether a number of different things. But we will also, we are also inviting the task force for the California Indian Heritage Center that is to be built on that site, and then also the Native American Heritage Commission as well, so that there can be a little bit of cross-pollination in all of the efforts that are going on at the state level. So we'll send out the registration links again. Once folks are registered and they're confirmed that they can attend, we'll send out the site and all of the information for folks that are going to be attending in person. This day is completely outdoors, so it's a little bit more flexible in terms of public participation. And then the afternoon, there will be a few primary sources that are available for viewing, and we're just locking down those details now. Those, because they're inside and because some of them are under glass and people need to be kind of accompanied, those will need actual registration just because there's still in our county still COVID precautions in place for places that are inside. And then on Friday from 9 a.m. to noon, the council will hold a hearing at the California Natural Resources Agency auditorium. This will be heavily hybrid because again, it is an inside venue. So registration will be required. And really we're trying to limit this day for in-person participation to those folks that are on panels, those tribes that are indigenous to the Sacramento area, and then the council itself. Loretta, is there anything you'd like to add at this time?
Nope, you covered it.
Okay. So then with that said too, if there's anything that participants think would be a good idea to include, or any sort of side events or places that we should be highlighting. We've been asking local tribes, and I'll go through those questions in a second. We've been asking local tribes too about local resources that we should also be linking out to. For example, we would love to be able to share the different economic development activities of different tribes in the area for folks that are in town, because we want people to understand that there's still California Native people here, living in ways that are completely valid, and may not be what they learned in history books, if they learned anything at all, but then also where there's places for self-study. So there's a number of different museums that have different interpretive programming that tribes have been a part of, and so want to make sure that folks are aware of those as well. Hybrid meetings and hearings will prioritize the local tribes and Native peoples of the region, and so that will be kind of the marching orders until we're in a place where we can be completely open because of pandemic conditions. And so for each meeting, we ask tribes a number of questions, whether they have any suggested or proposed speakers to present the story of their tribe or the Sacramento region to the council. And this is obviously, the region changes depending on the region we're in. Speakers can be elders, tribal historians, trusted academics, and will receive a stipend for speaking. And then is the tribe interested in providing an opening blessing or thoughts for either day of the meeting? Would the tribe or representative like to have the opportunity to tell the story of the tribe at the location on a walking tour? How many individuals will attend from the tribe? Or is there anything about the tribe that you would like highlighted for the general public? Because we will be providing links. We can also stream any content that tribes have already developed to tell their story. Would your tribe or any of your tribal members like to host any affiliate events, which could include nature walks, dinners, cultural center, open houses, or the like? And then would your tribe like to provide any digital content, including videos, scans, or recordings for presentation to the council? In addition to quarterly meetings, the council will also hold regional hearings throughout the state. And so these are shorter hearings, but they're to give different tribes, different regions, the opportunity to highlight their story specifically. So if your tribe, organization, or institution would like to host a regional hearing and then have that be a part of the council's portfolio and have that streamed by the council as well, or you have a topic you'd like us to cover. So if there's a specific incident that happened that you'd like to cover in a regional or a topical hearing, please contact us at info@catruthandhealing.com. I'm going to pause very quickly before we go into, well, actually, let me go through this and then I'll pause and then we can see if there's any comments or questions. And then we'll go into the discussion portion if folks don't have questions. So right now, the council has a number of subcommittees, including the Academic Partnerships Committee. And this subcommittee is working on what are the partnerships that are needed to do the work of the council and who are those partners. And so whether it's, a partnership with a CSU to help do some of the oral history recordings, or if it's a partnership with a UC to help do some research for tribes, those are the types of things that the Academic Partnerships Committee is working on. The Funding Partnerships Committee is working with our philanthropic partner to first create a community fund, but also to think about what are the different needs of the council and the community in engaging in this work. And then long range, what are some of the remedial measures recommended by the council that could be potentially funded by philanthropic or private sources? And so that's, they're working in partnership with our partner. And then the Youth Council it had its first virtual convening in January and is planning on having a second virtual convening in late March. So we'll be getting some of those materials, I think, out by next week, right, Loretta? Okay, she's nodding. And then, so for those of you who have, tribal youth councils within your tribe, or if you have kids or anything, really, we're getting a good mix of Native youth that are plugged into their tribal communities and Native youth who feel a bit islanded and they're living in urban areas. And we want to make sure that everybody's kind of coming together for this collective effort. And so that we're not having any of our youth that are falling through the gaps and not feeling like a part of our community. And really what we're focused on with the youth are empowering them to own their own story as a California Native descendant that is part of our community, but also a part of this legacy. And then also empowering them to tell that story in a way that that creates a path for them, whether it's, you know, within Native circles or outside of Native circles, understanding that all of that makes them special, unique, and a part of something that has an old history and an old tie to this land. Status and identity, we are still actively seeking someone who can help moderate and mediate this conversation. And we're really hoping for someone who has a little bit of distance from the California Native community so that they're not bringing some of the perceptions that come with whatever tribe you're a member of, whatever region you're from, but that can also help this group kind of work through the major issues and barriers that come with lack of recognition, lack of membership, and figure out how to meaningfully remediate that. And then the education subcommittee is working on a number of different education initiatives. The curriculum is one of them. That will be kind of developed as that committee comes together more fully. And then the deliverables subcommittee, as I mentioned earlier, is working on those actual, what are those recommendations and what are the things that are going to come out of this process that can be done either now or later. And that, again, will start getting populated in the near term. And then the elders subcommittee is seeking additional elders for their subcommittee. And again, those oral history submissions as well. So I'm going to stop sharing for a minute and see if there's any questions or discussions at this time, or if anyone has joined and wants to introduce themselves as well. And while we start kind of listening, I'm going to get that link to one of the oral histories at the California Museum from Ernest Siva. Any comments, questions, thoughts at this time? Here is in the chat.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
this
Christine, it's Robert Levi.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think our subcommittee, the education subcommittee, is meeting tomorrow. So if anybody has anything in education, now would be time to let me know. I don't think anybody else on the subcommittees on or the committees on right now, but if you got anything to take or for me to take to them, let me know in terms of like Christina said, curriculum or concerns about who's doing the teaching and how they're doing the teaching. What else would there be? I mean, anything else that has to do with education, if you put it in the chat, I'll write it down and take it to them tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. And then so this last question, does any particular subcommittee have responsibility for developing proposals for material reparative measures such as restitution? That would be the deliverables subcommittee. So where there are proposals that folks from the community are already thinking about, they can submit it to that committee, or they can submit it through our regular channels, and that'll go straight to the committee for their consideration and develop further development. And then each committee itself that is part of an issue area, and I imagine a few more subcommittees that are, so the ones that have been developed are lenses that need to be captured in order to do the work in a way that feels meaningful, and also elevate certain things that need to be elevated. Issue area specific subcommittees, I imagine, will also be in development as we start getting these testimonials and hearings that will be more specific to things like land, the natural environment, and degradation and things like that. And so those two will be thinking about what are some recommendations that could be adopted by this council. I saw, Madonna, you had a raised hand, so I don't want to be talking over if you'd like to say something.
Hi, thank you. So with the education, I want to just share in Sonoma County, it took me about 5 years to change this, but all Native Americans in the Santa Rosa City School District are now able to wear tribal regalia, whether they're graduating from Head Start, kindergarten, 8th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 12th grade, it's now code. So I just wanted to share that. So now my next task, I'm going to try to have Napa's school district be changed. So I just wanted to share that with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. And it might be worth you joining in the education subcommittee to talk about how that process works, because I know that it's like a long-term intensive thing. And if you're doing it at the local level, people are going to have different challenges depending on where they're at.
When is that meeting? Maybe if Michael could send that to me. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other folks want to speak up? And then we'll also look at the chat.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi there. Sorry, I had my hand up, but it got lost. Thank you for your good work. I was wondering, and I'm sorry if I missed it, has the Decolonizing Wealth, have they hired someone for their position that's going to help the council's mission?
They have not yet hired someone for their position, and what they've done in the interim is just redirect some of their resources so that they can have more focus on this council, but haven't yet hired that person. So to the extent that there are folks that are interested, or even if it's, you know, in a kind of limited or part-time capacity to just ensure that there's, you know, that kind of person on point, I think that we would love to hear from you and hear some of those recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. And that position, just to be sure, you're in charge, correct? Or your office?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have pulled them in to assist us in developing that grant fund. We're still kind of they've been brought in to help us. And then the council itself is thinking through, and this is actually something that's important for all of you, is thinking through other additional members to be part of the advisory body for that grant. And it's the California Truth and Healing Fund. And so the advisory body for that fund, it's kind of like if any of you are familiar with the Tribal Nation Grant Fund, where you have 9 tribal leaders who make the decisions on funding and also create kind of the grant rubric, and so that it is community informed. And then it also kind of keeps a balance so that, you know, all of this kind of tribe doesn't get something, or all of this type of person doesn't get all the things. And so, you know, there's some balance there. So if there are other folks who are have experience in doing that kind of work, I think we'd love to hear those recommendations so that we can send those to the funding subcommittee for their consideration to add to that advisory panel, who will be, again, voting on grant funding. And then just for this group, that grant, as it is, and all of the funds that are under that grant, they, because of how the funding goes, because of tax issues, it has to go to federally recognized tribes and 501c3s. And both we and DWP are aware that that's not, you know, the entire world of California Native people that would need to access funding sources like this. So we will also be partnering with a 501c3 to assist in pass-through grants for descendants, disenrollees, non-fed tribes that don't have 501c3 status, and other organizations that might be assisting that have California Native scope and leadership. Okay, so I will stop talking again. Any other questions, Chegg?
No,
Or
I
comments?
appreciate that. And then just the only other topic I wanted to just mention, I saw that the California Civil Liberties Grant Program from the State Library was opened up, and that was regarding the Executive Order 9066 that Roosevelt sent out during World War II regarding the Japanese internment camps. And I just thought that it was a good example that, you know, our council could look at for when we possibly structure funding opportunities for what happened to California Native people in terms of the laws that were passed, in terms of the intentionality for the displacement and the land theft. And I really liked how they structured their grant or their program application and the grant opportunities for scholars. And I thought that'd be really neat down the road to have a discussion so that, you know, the council doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. If you have funding and you have all these great Native scholars from all around the state that could go by region, and, you know, we could fund them to, write the definitive, updated, accurate, truthful history by region. Is what happened to the California Native peoples. So that's all. And thank you for your great work, and thank you for your good job with the social media announcements. I always have these meetings on my schedule and everything, but it's so nice because I see, like, the morning of your announcements, they pop up. They're real nice. I'm like, oh yeah, I got to go to that. So keep up that good work. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all Loretta. So Loretta is balancing so many things right now. So very much appreciation and love to Loretta right now. And then I put the link for, and I see the raised hand, so I'm not ignoring anybody, but I put the link for that civil liberties grant into the chat. And then what's interesting in here is that they have a recorded Zoom panel from June 2020. So it's hard to believe that that was almost 2 years ago now, and early COVID, when we thought that things would be over by July at the latest. But about a little known part of California's history, the intersection of marginalized Japanese American and Native American communities through government forced removal, relocation, and incarceration, and the resulting oppression of culture and language in affected communities in the Great Basin and Eastern Sierras. So that's pretty interesting for folks who may want to check that out. Kathy, I think you were the first to raise your hand, but I also actually, council member, I think if you have thoughts or reactions, please feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I want to get back to the elders group there. I kind of sense that sometimes elders are put in the back seat. And what I'd really like folks to start thinking about is talking to your elders. I know one young person came to visit me, and apparently he talked to some other folks who indicated they'd like to come see my place as well. And his response, well, why don't you ask? And I'm thinking, you know, many of us have been made to feel that we're less than particularly those folks that are not part of reservation community per se. You know, those folks that have been non-federally recognized and all of that. So there's this emotion. I know you've got elders out there that are older than I am. I know we have one here in San Diego for sure. And her comment to me when I asked her, you know, please record your biography, or it's not worth anything, but it is. And again, I want to really get to that. We're stressing education and money and funding, and every other culture has got their little handout crying the blues, and they're part of the woe is me society. We're not part of that. We're a proud people who come from really strong heritage, and you've got undiscovered intellects within the community and the younger generation. And they're the ones that need to start talking to the elders, and the elders need to start talking to them, not in a scolding way, not in a criticizing way, but in a complimentary area where we can really correct this historical record in California for the benefit of all California Indians. I just really think we need to really keep a focus on that. So I hope you don't mind me stealing your time, but I feel passionate about that.
Thank you, council member. You cannot steal what is already yours. The floor is always yours if you want it. And you also just provided us with another clip that we can probably post about the importance of elders. So thank you. Kathy, you have a raised hand if you'd like to speak.
Hilly, regarding the identity subcommittee, this coming week, a friend and really quite a researcher and authority on tribal disenrollment, David Wilkins, will be here in California for the inauguration of a new constitution in a California tribe. And we plan to meet, and I would also like to entertain any questions or any responses regarding the disenrollment situation in California, and also any questions one might have on addressing this situation amongst California Indians. So just if you have any suggestions for questions, etc., please feel free to add them in the chat and I will take them out of there. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And I think if that's a person that you would like to speak to the subcommittee, we are creating a list of different people that can speak to the subcommittee once we have some facilitation available. And I know we've also got Supervisor Crandall over in Lake County has offered as well. And so we are keeping track of that so that that can all be part of that conversation too.
Yeah, I really think that Gabe Galando would be an excellent resource for that. I don't know how he feels about that, but in terms of with Supervisor Lake County E.J. Crandall, I also would like to offer condolences in the loss of his mother this past week. So love and blessings sent to him, and thank you.
Thank you. Luis Ramirez.
Hello. I was sort of talking a little ways back about education. One of the things that Ohlone Costanoa and Esalen Nation has done is worked with a play. We started as a reading a couple of years ago, and we're bringing information. We were down in San Diego in November and opened it up to anyone who wanted to come. And we're talking about experience. We're talking about the fourth grade project, a mission project, and not wanting to work on that and having the actors. So we're bringing information. One of the questions I received from a non-native person was, where did you get all this information? And how can you say it? And we said, you know, we're basing it in a play, and you may not think it's happening, but all of this information is true, and history, written in history, about the scalping of our people, the heads, the bounties throughout California. So we're putting all that information into our play, and we get a lot of response that people just don't know that. And especially at college level. This was at the University of California in San Diego. And we're working with Berkeley, we're working with San Jose and other theater groups to bring that information. And we're constantly updating it. So it's a form of education that we're working on to let people know, as a non-recognized tribe, we're still here, and we're sharing that information with anyone that we can take it to. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Really appreciate it. And as you have those kinds of convenings, we would be happy to post it as, you know, a third party type of affiliate event. That's the type of thing that we are contemplating as this, you know, continues, so that it's, you know, not necessarily an endorsement, but it is something where folks who are interested in learning more about your tribe specifically can go to our site and then get more information from you all.
Yeah.
So that you just have amplification.
Each of our plays have been recorded, and they're on YouTube, and you know, you can watch it. It's a long version is 2 hours, short version's 20 minutes. So it's on YouTube, and we call it Ia, and Ia is our word for bones. So we're talking about the ancestors, and it relates to problems we've had with the political individuals in our county. And so when we've gone to meetings and they don't accept our voice, so we referred to those incidents as well, just to show people that this is what we're still going through. And so if you'd like to see it, it's on YouTube, and it's called IA. Thank you.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. And in that also same vein, we are in the process of planning, and I spoke with the Northern California Tribal Chairs Association earlier this week, or sorry, last week. I guess time just doesn't matter anymore in my brain. But last week about anything that they'd like to do for the June meeting. And so if there are Native peoples or Native communities or tribes on this call in the Northern California region, which I can put a map in the chat, who are interested in kind of thinking through and planning that meeting, which will be in June. We would love to have that conversation and think through, like, resources like Louise just brought up. What are things that are important to be sharing with the community in the weeks and days surrounding these conversations. I'm also going to, and Louise, you've got a question about the spelling for Ia.
I'll put it in the chat.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And then I'm putting in the chat a link to today's presentation, because we got a question about that too. So I did it in real time. So if there are typos, I apologize. I think I caught one of them, but we can always update it as well. We also have resources for council members now for public engagement, which I'll send out to the council members probably later today, that has a kind of different presentation. But to the extent that there are tribes or other representatives of tribal communities that are trying to create interest from other, outside participants. It's geared toward non-native people who don't necessarily understand the background and the history here. So it's kind of more of an introductory conversation about why this is needed, what are the elements of this, and what are the foundational goals of this process. But if there's anybody who is not a council member who wants to have access to that, we can also provide that to folks as well, with the caveat that that there are some caveats. We can talk about it later. Anything else, Loretta, that I'm forgetting that I should be saying right now? Oh, and that will be updated. This PDF that I just put in the chat will also be put on the meeting site, which I'm gonna very quickly share screen for all of you so that you see where it is. And Loretta, if you could let me know when can you see that okay?
Yep, we're good.
Okay. So this is the landing site for the Truth and Healing Council. It's tribalaffairs.ca.gov/CTHC. And we have been updating our social media graphics that, again, Loretta, props to Loretta for doing these and making them so beautiful, meaningful, and also informational. So this has everything you need for this next couple of weeks. We're going to be putting that additional information in the next day or two, and that'll be available here if you click it, and that's at meetings. So tribalaffairs.ca.gov/CTHC/meetings. And so we've got the agenda for Fridays up here. We've got links that are up here as well. And then we'll be putting materials up as needed. For the listening sessions, we'll be putting the PDFs, like I just put in the chat, in this materials part. And then as summaries are updated, they'll be uploaded as well as the recordings. We've got them sorted by different months. So everything is on this page. We've decided not to do archiving, just so that it's easier for people to access everything at the same time. But if you don't see something, it's because it spills over to the next, and it does kind of an annoying thing, but just press next, scroll down, and then you'll see other dates. You can also search the month that you're looking for. So I can go August and spell it right, and then I can see what's there. We've got for listening sessions and for meetings, different things. So everything as it's available gets uploaded there. It also gets uploaded at the updates page, which is catruthandhealing.com. And you can subscribe at this blog and get real-time updates to your email. And that's about it from that. So I'll stop sharing that and go back to answering questions and hearing comments. The type of information that's a priority for elder interviews, do you want to speak to that, council member, or would you like for me to speak to it? Chag is asking what type of information is priority for the elder interviews that we're looking to conduct.
I'm not sure that I've ever really considered, subject or all that. What I'm concerned about is everybody's true story told by them, not by an anthropologist, ethnologist, or educated highbrow person. We're all people of the earth. Some of us don't use the English language as well as others, but the essence of those stories, every one of them, is really key to the historic record of California Indians. And that's what I'm hopeful, that we can get a whole body of honest, true stories, recollections of stories that were told by grandmothers and grandfathers that have affected the lives of those who are telling that story. and that we can synthesize that and really write our own history. We Indians write our own history based on that information. Many of us have similar stories. None of us have the same story. Everybody has their own road to path. And it's that I think is terribly interesting, because I think sprinkled in all of that is the understanding and the essence of the earth, the environment, how we moved with the rhythm of those environments. And we're still here in spite of all of the nonsense that has gone on, where they've tried to erase us from history. And believe it or not, they're still trying to do that. Excuse me, I'm on modern technology and my damn phone ringing. Sorry, that's the only modern thing I have, and it drives me nuts. But anyway, I don't want to lose my train of thought. It's just that we have an intuitive knowledge of our environment that I think we should be given the privilege to tell from our perspective and our experiences. And I'm afraid because of the Reorganization Act, the Allotment Act, termination, all of that. And now we're into talking to agencies about development. And if the Indian leadership in the state of California isn't paying attention to that, and I know this is critical, shame on that, because there's very little of our natural resources left in the state of California. We have an obligation to our ancestors, to our environment, to try and preserve and protect that for all people, not just us, but for us. And so in that process, I think we have a golden opportunity of educating the public at large, but it must be sincere, it must come from the heart, and it must come from those who really want to contribute. And I know we've got a lot of folks out there that are just sitting back, well, that doesn't matter. It does matter. It matters very much, and it matters to those who haven't been born yet. So I just, wanted to throw that out. So I hope that makes sense.
Thank you, Councilmember Lucas. Once again, beautifully said. And I think really speaks to the values that this effort is trying to realize. We have a follow-up question. So how about archived information from California Native elders? So video interviews from 60 California Native elders from the North Coast. Those could definitely be reviewed for possible use. Our only, I think, constraint around using already existing materials, we want to make sure that we're not being extractive in its use. And so to the extent that we're getting consent from family members or consent from, folks that are associated with it, that's what we would want to be doing. We don't want to be incorporating material that people aren't okay with us incorporating into the space. But I think that that could very much be a part of this. And I think what I'm hearing from Councilmember Lucas is it's not necessarily, it doesn't need to be specific to, something that happened 200 years ago. It could even be the experience of growing up on a reservation that doesn't have electricity. That's a whole part of this legacy. And so, or the stories that we hear from our grandparents about how they grew up because of different things, like the Indian Reorganization Act, not being able to live on the reservation because there's scorpions and no water. There's real stories here that I think people discount as being relevant, but are so critical to the holistic understanding of how California Native peoples have survived this long. So yes, I think, Chag, if you have those materials and they have been, they're good to go, and there's been consents on the front end, and people have done that with the intent that they want to share it, then we want to incorporate those. We have a raised hand from Sarah Nicole.
Hi there, can you guys hear me okay?
Sorry, we're nodding. We can hear you.
Oh, okay, sorry. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. And I agree with, also thank you very much for everything that you spoke. Ms. Chairman Lucas. I really appreciate that. And I think that the older I get, the more I realize that there is a dire need to seek counsel from our elders. And that is an art that is unfortunately being lost as every moment progresses. So my name is Sarah. I'm from Tongva Nation, which is an unfederally recognized tribe here in the Southern California region. As I am unlearning and decolonizing bit by bit, my heart is heavier by the day, learning what are not just, fiction stories, but are very real stories that are happening and are still happening in California and all over the United States and ultimately the world. With that being said, I just got back from Standing Rock, doing some video recording and photography to honor the Water Protectors' 5th annual prayer walk. Standing with elders there, very humbling. The reason I bring this up is because I am working on a documentary right now called Finding the People, and I would love to offer my services directly to the California Truth and Healing Council in regards to documenting, as it is in full alignment with what I'm working on right now, the stories and oral histories of our elders, of our people, of our children. I recall earlier that it being said that there has been no recorded oral story yet, which is a little disheartening, be it how long this council has been in state. So to expedite this process and to create further urgency, I would love to offer my service and, maybe get some emails from, any individual that I need to get into conversation with and set up some meetings to see when I can get out there and begin doing that. I am going to be doing that myself, regardless. So if there would be, further need and desire to do that, I would love to extend my services. As every day progresses, there is a less and less more likelihood, unfortunately, that the stories are going to be authentically captured because memory is malleable and our elders are dying. We just had an elder in the Tongva community that unfortunately I did not have the privilege of meeting. Her name was Julia Bogandy. And that was a really big reality check for me personally, being a Native person who was reconnecting with their tribal ways. So yeah, extending my hand in that regard. So if one of you could let me know who I can be in contact with so we can really get this moving and going and creating that foundation. Thank you.
Thank you. We very much appreciate the offer and we'll be in touch. Additional thoughts, comments? We're a little over time, but want to make sure if there's any outstanding. Okay, well, any final thoughts, Councilmember Lucas or Councilmember Perrone?
Can you hear me?
My technology.
Yeah. I defer. Councilmember Lucas, please go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you for your courtesy. I don't have much more to add. I just think, the more I think about it, the more I understand how truly important it is that we as California Indian people up and down the state, the amount of us that are still here who pay homage to those that preceded us. We have different philosophies in every area because of the environment in which we live. The world is moving faster than it did 100 years ago. So I do think that we shouldn't let any dust get under our feet. We need to proceed with getting the task at hand done. And I thank people for listening in and taking to heart what we have to say, because I do think we own this history. We need to be the ones that record it correctly and educate the entire world about California Indians. And we're still here. We're not crying the blues that, we got a handout and all that kind of nonsense, but we're still proud people who hang on to our heritage and want to see it grow to the next generation and the generation that hasn't been born yet. So that's basically what my thoughts are today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Perrone, anything else?
Yeah, and thank you for that offer to do that. I know we did a study here in Tule River collecting old photos and recording some of our elders. We currently have about 356 surviving elders, and 55 years of age is the age of an elder for Tule River. And our oldest elder is about 92 years old, I think, from our last census that the tribe does. And our elders council is very active. So we're going to be looking to bridge that with our youth council and our elders council. A few years back, we started having meetings. We called it a tri-council meeting because we had all three councils there called to order. Each one would host that. And I think that's real important, is getting the youth involved with our elders and then with all of us in the middle, so that we can share things that we've learned throughout our life journey and preserve that for those that are still on their way. And it's really important. And sometimes it's hard to get people to share. There's a lot of trauma that they don't want to talk about. A personal story with our family. My grandma, her Yoka name was Wewit, but she didn't teach the language to my mother or her siblings, because why would I teach something that's going to cause you pain? So she went through the boarding school crisis that we had, and but she survived. We are from a very hardy people, and we'll get through this. So it's just, I'm grateful to the governor, and I'm grateful to you, Christina, for seeing this through and making sure that we're at these meetings and getting the notice and the participation from everybody. And I hope that it continues. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, with that, we will end for today. Thank you all for your time and attention and participation, and we will see you all on Wednesday. So take care, everyone.